You could play, Mount through the middle or Cunha or somebody, but the actual only sort of like physical big body would be Zirkzee, right? So they're saying one thing, one injury, and you're up. Although you as a United fan, you would hope that injury never arrives for Sesko, and then he's not going to get in, right? He's panicking big time with the World Cup coming up.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe, that is Jay, and today we are joined by Nathan Salt, Manchester United reporter for the Daily Mail and friend of the channel now, I'm going to say. You've been on many times. We love having you on. Loads to talk about with Manchester United. We're going to talk about some transfers, some players maybe a little bit discontented. We're going to look ahead at the Liverpool game and maybe some positive news as well if we can find some, because at the minute, even though United won the last game, everything's very up in the air. But first of all, Nathan, how are you? I'm
good. I get a lot of messages actually on social media. When are you going back on Paddock? So here I am. I'm back. I just always say whenever they invite me back. And
listen.
Glad to be back.
We're only famous off the back of your picture. Your McCullough's picture is when
my oversized T-shirt next to McCullough is what's made this channel
to the next level.
Yeah, brick by brick, I built this channel up with that picture.
I love that. There's a lot to talk about. I think let's go back a little bit, because there's a sort of Kobbie Mainoo question at Manchester United, and obviously it's kind of reared its head in the international break with his omission from the England squad, which is relatively commonplace now, unfortunately. Also the comments from Lee Carsley last week about whether he could play for the under-21s, which was a bit of an Amorim response where he sort of said yes and no all at once. I think he sort of said, yeah, we could have him because he could play, but also he's probably closer to the first team than he is the under-21s, so probably not. Okay, well, cheers, Lee. But it sort of brings into question the wider point around Mainoo. What's going on there? What's your understanding of Mainoo's kind of situation? And why is it that he's a big name, he's someone that people want to see, and yet no one can seem to find a place for him at the moment?
Yeah, obviously frustrated, as you would be, as we'll touch on Zirkzee as well, very frustrated. I think that's obvious, you would be. Clearly very talented. He feels he can play either in that pivot or as one of the 10s. The 10s, I think, are very difficult to get in ahead of. And Mbeumo, Cunha, Mount, they're probably your first three. We've seen Ahmad play there, with Mazraoui back in. That's 4. Zirkzee would like to think he's in there. Bruno could be pushed up. I think there's a lot of people that Amorim would look to first before Mainoo. I'm not sure I really agree. I try and back Amorim where I can. I like giving the manager time and giving him the benefit of the doubt. But this idea that Mainoo is too slow or not disciplined enough or not mobile enough to play that position, I'm not sure I agree with that. Okay, he's not this bulldozer that is going to be perfect next to Bruno Fernandes. Probably do need someone a bit more defensively minded. But I wouldn't be against pushing Bruno up and putting Mainoo and maybe a Casemiro in that midfield. Mainoo's very good on the ball in terms of keeping possession, which I think Amorim wants to do. I spoke to someone during the summer, quite a senior figure at the FA, and they were talking then that they thought Mainoo would be a brilliant piece of the puzzle for England's World Cup squad. Doesn't seem likely now, but at that point they said there are games where you will need someone like Kobbie Mainoo. And Man United, they won the game against Sunderland, so let's keep it positive. But there's been plenty of times where they need to improve. At City, they improved massively when he came on. So I just struggled to keep justifying this decision that there's not minutes there for him, right? It can't just be he's behind Bruno Fernandes and that's it. Well, if that's the case, then I don't blame Kobbie Mainoo for thinking I need to get out of it, because Bruno's never injured, never wants to come off, is the captain, and is like one of the most trusted players in the team, and is very talented. Let's not get away from that. But Kobbie Mainoo absolutely should feel frustrated with how it's going.
Do you think he's right to want to move, or do you think he just needs to? I know you said he should be frustrated, but can you see a pathway where he could get back into this team? Because at the minute, the whole Bruno thing seems a bit odd, because that, like you just said there, that's the one player in world football, the outfield player, who plays almost every minute of every game. He never gets injured. I think he's been injured about twice since he's been at Old Trafford, and those were a few days at a time. Like he's a constant. He's the captain. He's arguably your most talented player, and your most influential player. You couldn't pick a worse player to tell someone, well, if he's not in, you're in. Do you think Mainoo, there is any sort of justification for wanting to move, or do you think he should maybe look at it and go, okay, yes, Bruno is all the things I've just mentioned, but I'm 20? Is he 20, Mainoo? 20. Yeah. Bruno's in his 30s. Casemiro's in his 30s. There's long term. Should I just stay here, get my head down, and just keep this manager happy?
Sure, but it's difficult as well, because I'm starting to think how good is Amorim's man management, really? Because you got one of the biggest strengths of a manager is being able to keep a big squad, happy when they're not playing and keeping them involved. And every time I speak to people, it's always training's really good and good energy in there. But there are a lot of players that are frustrated. Someone like Aidan Heaven is probably more content to just try and keep learning, not playing a lot of games. Did play towards the back end of last season. I think he's unfortunate that he's behind Luke Shaw now, Alessandro Martinez, hopefully back before the end of the month. That's the plan there. So Aidan Heaven really low down the rankings in terms of, but he's not one that's going to drop into the academy teams. Mainoo might look at it and go, one injury to a Casemiro or Ugarte. There's no Eriksen now. It only takes one injury and suddenly that midfield is going to be pretty light. No, I'm not expecting necessarily January reinforcements there. I think it'd be a big overhaul maybe next summer. So, yeah, United's argument is we need you. We will need you at a point. We just don't need you right now. And I think that's difficult. In a World Cup year, it's always difficult.
Yeah.
He's still going to think, if I can ball out somewhere for 4 or 5 months, I can break that England team. Whether people believe that or not, you've seen people like Elliot Anderson go past him. You've seen people like Adam Wharton, who's played really well and is playing regularly. Even he's not getting in, and he's ahead of Kobbie Mainoo. So I think he's looking at it from a selfish point of view, saying, I don't want to leave Man United for good, but can I get somewhere for 6 months if you don't want me, if you're not going to use me? That's why I think the 1 game a week, Amorim said he wanted that. Okay, he did want to win that European final when we were out in Bilbao and I was getting flamed for my outfit. he did want to win that final. I do believe that. There's no way he wanted to lose that final, but I don't think he was devastated at the prospect of 1 game a week. That's what he wanted, and this is the result. This is unfortunately one of the side effects of that is you haven't got enough minutes to go round because he sticks with that same 11 so often.
Me and you were talking about this, weren't we, the other week? And it's a weird situation that United are in for certain positions, because even now, look at someone like Matheus Cunha. I know it was only 1 game, was it the Sunderland game, where he's dropped to the bench, but he's a £60-odd million almost marquee signing who might not start Anfield. Probably won't after Mason Mount's performance and Brian Mbeumo's performance, because I don't see any of them two getting dropped, or Benjamin Sesko anytime soon. So you've got this weird situation where United are, a bit up and down, to put it kindly. And in certain positions, you could argue we're lacking, but in others, there's probably not enough, like you just said, enough minutes to go around.
But what I see a lot of times coming back on social media is like, are Man United the only team that's not allowed squad depth? Like that's always what comes back. It's like, well, these players have got to accept that. City, Liverpool, they all have these deep benches. I don't think Amorim utilises that bench that well, really. If he had 5 players of Cunha's level to come off the bench, that should be a huge positive. If you were able to bring on Cunha, Mainoo, let's just say Mazraoui started, you could bring on Ahmad. There's some really good options there to bring on and change games. But the problem is, it's like you'd rather just bring on a centre-back or two when it's 1-1 and really precarious. And let's chuck Maguire on, let's chuck Yoro.
Maguire's been getting on.
But I don't understand that. I still can't wrap my head around the thinking. Now, I know what people say again in the comments of like those wide centre-backs. They take up so much energy that you need to keep them fresh. So yes, I get that. I'm just not a fan of changing the back 3 in a game where you saw at Chelsea they end up scoring when they changed the back 3. But the idea of depth is a fair one. I just don't think the minutes are there. You're not getting half hour off the bench. You're not getting 35 to impact the game. So we'll see. I don't think Cunha will start at Anfield, and really, should he? I don't think so.
No, I think it'd be harsh, wouldn't it, to be dropped. You're not following, are you, Nath? You're the trust the process guy.
Yeah. But I think, I know.
You convinced me. You convinced when I spoke to you when you was over in Portugal, and you were like, sat there and spot, and I was like, I'm fully on board with this. This is a great.
I think looking at the season, I think there's been a lot more positives than people think. Ultimately, you need results. That's not good enough. The results, but. And people absolutely hate this. I understand I get flamed anytime I tweet something like this, but scores that penalty at Fulham, I think it's a different game. Scores the penalty at Brentford, I think then it's a different game. City, right off display, fine. Yeah. Arsenal, I was chatting to some Arsenal colleagues, they were naff that day. But ultimately, when you're, United have been that for years under Fergie, when you're not that good and you win, and that's just the way it goes when you're that top end. But I thought they played well. Sunderland came in with loads of hype. And by the end, everyone was like, I always said Sunderland were crap. They were never any good, actually. And Amorim only beats promoted teams. But before, it was like, Sunderland are amazing. Like, what a breath of fresh air in this Premier League. You know, they are rewriting the script for promoted teams, and then it was like, actually, now they were never any good. Man United, that's a terrible result. You know what I mean?
And the Chelsea one as well, where it's like Chelsea, dark horse to challenge for the title, and then they had a red card.
Down to 10 men.
They had a red card because they made mistakes because of our pressure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like when we make a mistake or someone gets sent off for us, it's not because the opposition is crap.
Right.
It's because they did good stuff or we played badly.
Right.
Like I just think this whole thing of like everything bad that happens is our fault and everything good that happens is the opposision's fault, or you know they messed it up so we did well.
But like City bad, Brentford bad, you know, Brentford bad. And you know, even me with my sort of pom poms, I'm not going to come on here and say that was good.
No.
That was bad, and that was, I think, individual. I don't really like agreeing with Michael Owen too much, but I think he was kind of right in that you blaming it all on the system just is wrong. I think. I think okay, the system's not perfect, but players make some boneheaded decisions. I think, and they have done for years. Different players, not the same players. Different players that get recruited, and I actually think when you watch the performance of the eye test, Sesko, I like. I think he's played well. His link up is better than Højlund. You know, I was all for Højlund staying as a backup. He's gone. He's doing well in Italy. Good on him. And Mbumo, great. I think he's been one of the best buys in recent years. Mount, you've been waiting for him to break out. You know, injury ridden. Let's hope he stays fit now and does well. And you know, Mount and Cunha pushing each other and training every day, both fit, can only be a good thing. And that's with, you know, Ahmad at right wing back. I thought him and Mbumo worked really well. Sunderland had to abandon their entire game plan. Masuaku just got absolutely torched. And Sunderland boss Libris even came out after and was like, we just couldn't hack that. We couldn't hack that right side, and we had to change and go to a back five. Midfield, still an area of concern, but Bruno Fernandes still immensely talented. I think he does influence games positively. Dorgu, I think, has picked up in recent weeks, had a really good international break. So let's see how that translates. You're going to need him to do a bit more going forward in the big games, so we'll see at Anfield. Defensively, I think De Ligt's been good. I'm not sure on the timeline the slander I keep seeing for De Ligt. I think he's been one of the better players.
I think he's been really good.
Yoro is great. And okay, Shaw's had a 50-50 season, but there have been some good games, some bad ones. And Lysander's coming back at the end of the month, we hope. Lomans, I mean, you know, people were cheering every sort of claimed cross he had, which is a sign of how down bad we've all been for that. But I thought he exuded confidence. Different ball game at Anfield again, but there was enough reason going into the international break where I thought individually I like a lot of the pieces, and fitting together I don't hate it. I don't. If I should, then shout at me in the comments. But like I keep being told it's horrendous and it's awful. There have been a lot more good this season, I think, than bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like what you were saying. It's giving me a bit of confidence. That's more like it. You've always did it for me.
I'm back now.
Yeah, I know. I'm on, and I agree with everything you said. I think the elephant in the room, almost the one thing that there's no defence for that's really undermined Amorim this season, I think, is the Grimsby game.
Yeah,
I just think that's a massive misstep by everyone, all concerned. I'm not just blaming the manager, because any Manchester United team should be able to beat a League Two team. It was disgraceful from top to bottom. I just feel like that, having that extra game, having that trophy that you can win, and obviously not being beaten by League Two would have been a massive plus for Amorim and the team. But the one positive from that, the one good thing about it was early doors, and it'll be forgotten.
Devastating about. It won't be. That's the thing. It won't be forgotten, and it shouldn't actually be forgotten.
No, like if we get sort of progress in the league, I think people will stomach it. Shall I say? You're right. It won't be forgotten. Forgive me, but people will at least go, okay, we finished in the top 5 or whatever. People will go, okay, fair enough. But it's one of those where, when people are criticising the manager or questioning him, that is something that's going to always get brought up.
The mad thing with the Grimsby game, and the problem overall with the Grimsby game is that we were outplayed for 45 minutes. Yeah. That is the problem. I get that. That first half, they were just the better team, and that can simply never happen. No. They're 3 leagues below us. It's just awful. Cunha had a penalty to win that game, and I know it wouldn't have fixed the result at all. But being in the next round, we would have already played it. We could have already sort of started to right that wrong a little bit.
Yeah.
That opportunity obviously didn't happen because we then ended up losing. He missed that penalty, and then Mbumo missed the one for us to lose. But Cunha literally had the chance to win the penelty, to win the game with that penalty. So you got 3 penalties that could have completely rewritten United's season.
I remember speaking to someone recently about Cunha. We were just talking about, clearly he's a talented player.
Yeah.
I think against Arsenal, against Chelsea, you did see, was it Chelsea or Arsenal? I'm thinking of Arsenal, I think it was.
He should have had a penalty in that game.
You know, where he did play well,
should.
forced Ryan to a brilliant save down low to his left. We were just talking about the fact it hasn't, that lack of a goal or moment in the United shirt is just, you should have scored at Fulham. Was it the long ball from Bayindir that ends up, you should score there, and played really well at the beginning. Obviously, the longer it went on.
Great first touch, the finish.
So we were just talking about, you know, not had that moment yet, and it was actually put to me by this person that just thinking, I know it was Grimsby, I know he should score that penalty, but they just felt like that was kind of weighing him a little bit, because that's kind of that was a moment, right, that he could put him through. Yes, United should never have been in that position, but he could have been the one to rescued it. Bosh,
and we could have come away from that going, like, obviously there would be a lot of talk about what the hell just happened, but it would have been what the hell just happened, but at least they snapped out of it. That would have been the conversation, rather than now it's just an utter disgrace.
Because the fallout
for all
from it
time
was with the manager was bad as well, wasn't it? Because his comments after the game, the memes. I know it's only memes, and you know that just happens.
It was all terrible.
It was just the
terrible.
awful sort of 4 or 5 days, whatever it was, until there was the Burnley game next.
Yeah,
it was minging. So hopefully we'll get to a place where we're no longer looking at that.
Yeah, but I always think, lastly on the kind of cup situation, I always think that Mourinho and Pep Guardiola, two incredible managers, they always thought winning the Carabao Cup was a great sort of trendsetter, pace setter for the season. You know, it's the first trophy you could win. Why would you not go all out for it? I see so many managers kind of chuck it. And talking of Grimsby, I actually think they'll beat Brentford in the next round. I think Brentford are. It's funny to say on here because we get called sour grapes. I don't think they're that good, and I think Man United made them look a lot better than they were. And you see, going to Grimsby in an evening, having done it myself as a fan, not great. You don't want to be there. Like I said, I don't know if I ever told this story last time. No. Probably not, but I remember going to watch Grimsby with my team, Wrexham, in the non-league days, and Grimsby fans started on me in the McDonald's in Cleethorpes before the game. So nothing had happened.
Well, they just saw your colours and
they just saw the colours and they were like, "Not here, fella." And it was with my dad and my mate, and all a bit of a very bizarre.
You get stuck in?
I didn't really get stuck in. I'm not really. I kind of just removed myself from the placed
It's
my
a
order
bit-
and went
I
to sort of
mean-
stand over there. But, you know, it was a weird. I always think starting on me is a fairly weak move anyway, given the seen the picture.
I didn't want to say that, Nate, but you've said it, because you're not the tallest or biggest lad.
I think it's more of an indictment on you if you start on me.
It's not the most impressive.
If anything, I feel sorry for you that you've chosen me as your target.
Well, you've immediately won the fight as soon as they started.
It's a game of mental warfare at that point. And so Grimsby, I just have dark memories even before watching Amorim with that board.
And also, let's give Grimsby credit. They played really well.
Good on them,
and they really fought and they worked.
That was the frustrating thing when it wasn't a smash and grab where you go, they were, were.
Although I've come back in and I didn't think I'd be sort of digging up old wounds with Grimsby here. Sorry lads, I didn't realise. But
it's our fault.
That would have give players like
Zirkzee.
They
beat after that, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that would have give Zirkzee. Although Zirkzee got 8 minutes at Grimsby, that was a real bone of contention. Mainoo would have, Fredrickson obviously was basically never seen again after that game.
That could have been very damaging for him.
Aiden Heaven, obviously doesn't really play now. Bayindir's not going to get a look in now at all. Some people would be happy about that, but that would have given other players minutes, increase the competition. Lissandro, you're going to have to try and put on a game behind closed doors to get him up to speed. He wants to come back for that Brighton game or the Forest game. I mean, he's just going to have to go straight into it and hope for the best.
Sorry, just before we leave Mainoo, that's his name. I know you don't know. We'll find out in January. Would you expect him to go out in January? Or do you think the manager will be a look? You might not be starting games, but you're getting minutes, and I still need you.
United have no interest of letting Kobbie Mainoo go in January because they think it's a squad game. Fair enough. Like I say, what happens if there's an injury to Casemiro or Manuel Ugarte? Then what are your actual midfield options at that point? It's
Bruno.
But
it could happen. But just because it hasn't happened before.
But there are four players who can play that pivot in his mind: Bruno, Casemiro, Ugarte, Mainoo, probably in that order.
Yeah.
Sekou Kone, these players are not going to get going to get in a one game a week situation. So Mainoo's only one injury away from being in.
From a sort of sympathy perspective, I get it. Obviously, I think Mainoo should be playing more. I think it's a shame that he's gone from being a regular for England to not in the squad. But from a Man United perspective, we shouldn't let him go. And it's not obviously. you want to nurture the career of someone and think longer term, etc. But United need players, and he's a very good one. And even if it is just off the bench, you still need midfielders off the bench, and maybe it won't be off the bench eventually, like we said, injury or form or whatever. So I think especially if we don't bring anyone in, there would be no reason for me to let him go, because let's even just say Ugarte gets injured, Casemiro gets 5 bookings or whatever, however many for a suspension. Then what? Already you need him, and neither of those things are remotely sort of inconceivable, are they? In terms of midfielders bringing people in, obviously it's an area United know they need to improve on. There was an approach for Baleba. I think that was all it was, wasn't it? It didn't ever amount to a check on the table. But it's clear that United want a specific type of midfielder, whether that be seemingly in that kind of athletic, kind of deep-lying midfielder. I know Wharton isn't hugely athletic, but he's a really good runner. He's got good legs. Do you think United will make that approach in January? Because it seemed like there was still money in the summer. We were looking at it. Do you think we'll go back in for someone in January?
I'm sceptical. January is a very difficult window, and I think you're already looking. You're then only a few months removed from, will Casemiro move on? What happens with Ugarte if he doesn't play much this season? Do they just try and cut their losses there? I don't know. Before I get aggregated, I don't know there. But I think there's clearly the Baleba thing felt like, okay, Baleba's planned for 2026, but we're on a roll. Signings, cash some checks now. Let's just see what the feasibility is now, because if we get him now, great. It's kind of like no, and actually, I think there might be a piece soon on the Mail about is it actually a red flag that his form has kind of dipped and tailed off? Repeatedly taken off at half time in games. Brighton boss Herzl admitting that clearly it's got into his head a little bit. Adam Wharton, a lot of people like. Elliot Anderson, I really like. There are players out there, but there's so many moving parts to the midfield. I don't think it will necessarily be January. All depends market opportunity. That's a real cop-out answer from me. But it's more like the summer they're going to go, right, let's overhaul the midfield. You sort out Bruno. Is Bruno staying or going? That's point number one. That will then dictate, okay, what else are we doing here? Casemiro, is he going to go?
His contract runs out, doesn't it, this summer?
Yeah, although there's some talk about whether there's an option on that or whether it's club option or player option. Right. But the chances are United will be moving on from Casemiro. Like I say, Ugarte took a big swing on him, Ineos, and that's probably the one move for them that hasn't worked out. You've got his defenders that talk about various advanced stats that are over my head, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm not really seeing it there. And so, it could be two midfielders in. And who knows? Is it going to be the same manager by then? I hope it is. But I'm saying there's so many moving parts to the summer. January is just a difficult notoriously difficult window. Yeah. Let's see where United are come January. If they're in the mix for top 5, I would think they would go for it. Yeah. If they're 7th or 8th, if they're 13th, then I'll be declining all invitations to come back on until things have improved. And I don't know. We'll see.
You mentioned Zirkzee before. You wrote an article talking about basically he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that. Is that just purely lack of game time? Is that United telling him you're not going to get minutes, or is it just he can see the lay of the land and that it's clearly not a system that suits him, or certainly the manager doesn't think so?
No, it's not United. United are not. Again, they think squad depth. If anything happens to Benjamin Sesko, you've only got Zirkzee that could play there, really. Yeah, I guess they have
pushing Burmo there.
You could play Mount through the middle or Cunha or somebody, but the actual only sort of like physical big body would be Zirkzee, right? Yeah. So they're saying one thing, one injury, and you're up. Although you as a United fan, you would hope that injury never arrives for Sesko, and then he's not going to get in, right? He's panicking big time with the World Cup coming up. Not in the Netherlands group. De Ligt also not in the Netherlands group, but I think there's something more going on there. Yeah. Zirkzee definitely feels like, look, I'm in competition with people like Weghorst, Memphis Depay. Like, if I could just play regularly, and he played well towards the back end of last season.
Weghorst started for the Netherlands the other day.
Yeah,
he does a job for him, though, doesn't it? To be fair, he does. Like he scored a lot of goals for him, and in big games.
He does.
Like, I know we all look at him and go, the guy that didn't score any Premier League goals for us. and in 30 games, 31
But
games.
if you're watching that as Zirkzee, you're thinking, I can
that's
get
someone
in
I can
it.
get in front. It's not Mbappe up front.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I hear it's kind of mad that Memphis scores so many goals.
He's their top all-time scorer.
Yeah, it's like...
But I'm saying it's not, like I say, it's not an Mbappe, it's not a Ronaldo, it's not Harry Kane.
Yeah.
You're looking at it going...
insurmountable.
Yeah.
No, I think that's
You're looking
fair.
going, if I can play, and and he played well the back end of last season up until that injury at Newcastle.
Yeah.
He bounced back so well from that humiliating sub against
Newcastle,
Newcastle,
at
Old Trafford, and deserves an immense amount of credit for that. But you just get the impression, I think he's starting to get the impression, Amarin's just not having him, is he? 8 minutes at Grimsby in a rotated team that sounded the alarm. And as I wrote in that story, he's ready to move and get out in January, whether that's loan, whether that's permanent. United wouldn't want to take a huge loss on him, but he's desperate to try and do everything he can to get in that World Cup squad, and I don't see where the minutes are going to come. Like I said, I think I listed in that story as a 10. We know he doesn't want to play as a 9, Mr. 9.5, but he's going to be behind Mbeumo, Mount, Cunha. We've had Ahmad play there. I think he would pick Bruno there, Amarim ahead of Zirkzee.
I might put Mainoo ahead of him.
Yeah, Mainoo. So that's 6.
Yeah. Was it the Burnley game he came on early doors?
That was the one.
We got the injury, didn't it?
Cunha went off injured.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people were saying, put Bruno in the 10 and bring Mainoo on, and he didn't.
Yeah.
He kept Bruno in his position and then put
that was it.
Zirkzee there, and then obviously Mainoo came on at half time when there was another injury.
Only two players in the first team have played fewer minutes than Zirkzee this season. Tyler Fredrickson, who's basically an academy player, and Aidan Heaven. Both, very young centre-backs.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's not great.
No.
When you're thinking, like, Ronald Koeman's not the easiest man to convince to play Asmatized to lick that. So you're definitely not going to play when you're, I think he's had 82 total minutes for United this season, Zirkzee.
It's not enough.
No, yeah,
and I think he would probably, unlike Mainoo, this is just my opinion, I think United I could see them selling him or getting rid of him in January more than Mainoo. Even, obviously, no, I don't think we'd sell Mainoo, but like you said, we've got options there, and I know we try and do this sort of 2-year thing, or Barada likes to assess a player over 2 years. I think it's pretty clear with Zirkzee that it's... obviously, Amarim doesn't fancy him. I'm trying to think of what manager would play him 50 games a season.
I was asking myself
who I can imagine
when I was doing this story. I was asking myself when he arrived, what was the actual plan?
Yeah.
Do you think it was Zirkzee to play a false 9 with 2 people either side of him, kind of mirror that old Liverpool system? Was he meant to be this Firmino type?
Yeah.
Or was he just misprofiled, at Bologna, and it was just a bit of a whiff? I think he played well, like I say, towards the back end of last season. I thought he performed pretty admirably in a poor team. But those that I've listed there, I wouldn't be picking him ahead of those players. Wouldn't be picking him ahead of Mbeumo, Cunha, Mount, Ahmad if he plays there. It's difficult. But I don't think you're saying about that United could sell him. But I also think they're going to go, well, we haven't got a replacement for Sesko then, and Chido Obi isn't ready.
I was going to say that.
He's just not ready.
Chido's not even, getting in the squad.
I'm watching him regularly. That's a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
Not by him, obviously. That's a deliberate choice because they think, look at Fredrickson, and he played recently for the 21s after I was like banging on about it in the column that he was being wasted on the first team bench. But you're not. I disagree completely with people around the first team that you're developing just in training sessions with the first team. I think not playing for months on end is bad.
Yeah.
It's not good for young players. So that's why Fredrickson dropping back to the academy team was good. Leon playing in the academy team, although that didn't go great, but it's better for him.
Yeah.
Chido, they said, look, you're going to be a priority in the 21s, and he's 17. Let's not forget. So he's having to occupy 2. I don't want to turn this into Finn's academy review here, but
go on, feel free.
he's occupying 2 centre halves, which is a tough job at first team level, right? Like trying to play as a lone striker. And he's doing well and he's improving, but this is a big sort of like development year. Don't worry too much about the first team. Just focus. You're 17.
Yeah.
Really iron out your game, improve your game. And I've definitely seen that in a lot of matches. Scored at Liverpool, went away to the Liverpool Academy, seen him score a lot of games at Lee Sports Village. But he's too raw. Going from Sesko to Chido would be too much of an ask.
Yeah.
And is that where Zirkzee is his middle ground? But definitely from his side, if Amarin is still the manager in January and the situation has not changed, he will be actively pushing to leave.
I do feel like those, just on Cheeto before we talk about the Zirk stuff a bit more, the modern striker that relies more than ever on physicality, positioning, timing. You look at the top team strikers, there's a few exceptions, but a lot of them are taller than 6 foot. They aren't particularly quick, or they're quick, but they're not quick on the ball. They're not technical players particularly. They're people that rely on their size and their, sort of knowing the game. There's not many that have come through at 18, 19 in the last few years. It's 22, 23 that you start seeing these people make the big move. Even someone like Haaland, who's the freak of all freaks. What was he, 21 when he moved to City? And, he wasn't 19, was he? He was early 20s. I think, like, at 17 to play, like you said, as a number 9 in a big, physical, hard league like the Premier League is almost impossible, isn't it? So I think, obviously it would have been nice for him to come in, get 2 goals on his debut and never look back. But I don't think we need to sort of get too scared about.
We've seen that. So Makeda scored in his debut, and it was kind of like coming up pop. It was like pop, and then it was over. It was just like a quick fizz, and then it disappeared. So they're trying to play a bit more of a longer game with Cheeto, right? Like, if he's going to be, like I say, physically a very good profile, still needs to improve. And you're seeing that with Sesko. Like, he's improving, I think, game by game. Learning. He said it himself in that MUTV interview after he scored at the Stretford end and jumped about 50 feet into the air. He said, I'm improving, I am going to get better. So that's the thing. Is it United get to January, is it a selfish thing? Are they just going to go selfishly? No, we're not going to be able to sign a replacement. And we appreciate it's unfortunate you want to get in the World Cup squad, but we got to look after our interests. And if anything happens to Sesko, you're next man up.
Yeah. You would expect at some point as well, it's quite rare for a striker to play every single game. Like, you would expect Sesko to pick up a knock along the way, something to happen where, or even just rotating or whatever. Yeah, I know it's not ideal for Joshua Zirkzee, because it's the same thing as saying about Mainoo. Yeah, talent wise, he's probably good enough to get in the team. And from his point of view, if you're not playing and you're missing out on a World Cup, it's a short career. You'd be fuming. But then
you two have got the patience, though. I don't think these players have got. I'm afraid.
No.
I think you two.
And I think as well,
big picture.
We're obsessed with Man United, and I like England more than Jay does in terms of supporting them.
Really care.
But if I was a player, it would be a lot different. Or if for a lot of players, it's very different. It's like an international tournament is regarded probably as highly as a season of club football for some people.
Most players want to be at a World Cup.
Yeah, you would sacrifice. You get to play in this World Cup, but look at Luke Shaw, for instance. Yeah. But you're probably going to be injured for at least the opening chunk of next year. Yeah, I'll do it.
And I'm not a big international football guy, really. But I always think about when I covered England under-21s winning the Euros in the summer in Slovakia. I was like, don't spend 3 weeks in Bratislava, by the way. That's too long to be there. Just as a bit of advice. But James, scrap that 2.5 weeks off that.
Right, okay, we'll get on that in a minute.
James McAtee picked to play for England under-21s instead of going to the Club World Cup with Man City. Now, I know there's different factors there. He ended up leaving, going Forest, but he wanted to just win something internationally, and a lot of players do. They just want to be about it, be around it.
Yeah, I've always sympathised with players like that. I remember Marcus got stick when he postponed an operation. Even Luke Shaw, I get it. I'm not a big England fan. I understood why at 29 or whatever he was playing in another Euros final.
But optically, that was horrendous.
It was. I did have a bit. I probably had more sympathy with him than basically 99% of United fans. I kind of get it because your career is so short, and that might be your only opportunity. To try and win a major trophy.
That's probably going to be Luke Shaw's last England final, isn't it?
Yeah,
let's be honest.
I'd be very surprised if he was in the World Cup final.
Because he's not playing for the minute, and you're never guaranteed to get to a final. So I do get it. But
just on Mainoo, you mentioned those Lee Carsley comments about, yes, I think I like Lee Carsley a lot. I get on really well with him, having been around that group. I know you said it was kind of a bit wishy-washy, the answer, but, it was more just saying that he's extended the invitation, not necessarily called him up. It's not like Mainoo has rejected a call up to play for the 21s, but more just a discussion. He has started in a Euros final. He is essentially a first team player. Does he want to go? So they were playing in Moldova. I was chatting to some of the under 21s the other day at Derby. They were playing in Moldova, and there were some wild chickens running around the stadium. Yeah, it's quite a tough sell for when you've started in a that was actually exactly what somebody said to me. Someone at that game the other day was like, it's tough to convince a player who's played in the Euros final to go to Moldova on a Friday night surrounded by wild chickens. It's tough, innit? It's a tough sell, that.
A little bit. It's
maybe not to us.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but
I think
the Shire.
That sounds quite appealing. Where else can you get to play? In front of wild chickens, on a Friday night?
We're seeing novelty towards that.
Yeah.
Players are going.
Think of the excitement.
I think I am.
Players are going.
I'm trying to negotiate
Take that off your bucket list.
Over $100,000 a week.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for $200,000 a week. No,
that's all well and good. But have you played?
But I was just going to say on that. If I was Kobbie Mainoo, I absolutely would. Maybe I'm just a little bit sort of. Me like that, but I would play in the 21s and sort of send a message to Amram and send a message to Man United, because he would absolutely boss that level.
Yeah.
Like I watched the game on Tuesday night at Derby. They beat Andorra 1-0, arguably one of the worst games of football I've seen in a while. But especially when I was looking up like record wins before the game and it was 1-0, rough, waste of my time.
Really, expectation.
I was
to
like,
reality
they beat Serbia
tough,
9-1, they beat Azerbaijan 7-1, 1-0 at 94th minute. I'm like, this was a blow, wasn't it?
That's a drama,
but Jamie Gittins, who Chelsea fans are like, it's not got going, what a waste of money, 55 million, was like the best player on the pitch, came off chest puffed out, confident.
Yeah.
And I know people say, it's 21's football, but like it's only good for him going back to Chelsea having scored and got an assist in those two games.
It certainly hasn't hurt, has it?
No, it hasn't hurt, not injured. If I was Mainoo, you're not playing at Man United right now. You're not playing for England seniors. Same for Adam Wharton, like just play for the 21s. I know you think maybe you're above that level now, but like playing well and being the best player on the pitch anywhere, I don't think is a bad thing.
No,
I agree.
Definitely.
Let's move on to a couple of other things. I want to talk about the Liverpool game a little bit, but before that, let's just a quick sort of look at this stadium stuff, because it feels as though all of a sudden it's gone from, the bullet points being so impressive, 100,000, 7 billion, 90,000 jobs, everything your heart desires, this stadium that you may not like the look of it, but is certainly arguably the most unique looking stadium on the planet, certainly that I can think of. You could catch it out the corner of your eye and go, I know that's Man United's new stadium. Now all of a sudden, we can't get the land. We can't do it. Take the tissue off the top and use it to wipe my eyes because we can't even do it.
At the beginning, like in a relationship, when you talk the big game about what you're going to do and all the things you can provide,
and then
they've love bombed you. You've been love bombed.
I've been love bombed.
It happens, Joe.
By Norman Foster and Co.
It does happen. It happens. You've been love bombed, but it's all right. Well, you'll get something, I think, but it might not be the big. Well, you're definitely not going to get it, I don't think, by 2030, which was
I think...
Just forget that,
despite the fact that none of us are architects, we can rule that out.
That felt like pie in the sky when they said it.
They're going to put Lego on the canal.
Yeah.
You've never seen a graphic before.
Yeah.
Big Lego on a canal, Jim Ratcliffe knocking it in with his toffee hammer, putting it all together in a day.
I do think there will be a stadium, though. I think there's been some skepticism that, like, is that ever going to be a new stadium? When you speak to people like much wealthier and more powerful people than me, if you're ever in the same room as those, they're massive on like legacy, leaving something tangible that is like, I did this, huge ego trip.
That's basically all humanity is about, isn't it?
Daniel Levy gone now at Tottenham, but it's like, I did this. He did that big thing with Gary Neville of like, look at this floor, this marble. I picked this, and I picked that on the wall. And that light switch I picked out.
I picked that tiger.
Yeah.
No, I picked this tiger.
Whatever. But you're standing in a place that I picked, so technically by association, it's mine. Yeah.
Give me that tag.
So I get that kind of energy off Ratcliffe that like I'm gonna deliver something.
It's a sort of your Taj Mahal, your Colosseum, your pyramids. You put that stadium there for 100,000 people to sit in and enjoy themselves, depending on how often that happens. That is a massive thing to leave on the planet,
with their personal seat license and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, do we have any idea on how it may look if some of these things aren't able to happen?
Obviously, Laurie, who you've had on the channel many times, he wrote that story about the circus canopy, which I was really hoping for, actually, just for kind of amusement purposes. Sorry, lads, but that would have been...
they would have let you pay to walk up the side of it.
Like the photo opportunities. Think of the Instagram pictures. That would have been incredible.
You could see it from Spain, apparently. That's not true.
There was something there. You could see it from Liverpool.
I'm glad you cleared that up. That's not true. You can't. If you're stood in Spain, you can't see it.
You'll struggle to see it.
I see it from Liverpool. Incredible.
Imagine that.
But it's one of them things, isn't it? Where like I think they'll get something fairly close to what they wanted, minus maybe a couple of elements. But it's one of them things that until you actually see movement, you know what I mean? It's like once Tottenham fans saw that stadium going, it was like, right, this might take a while, but they're not going to. You can't just leave this sort of like half done structure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I've seen the NFL there. United needs to be. I hate this thing about like Wembley, the North, and all that, but like United need to build a stadium that can do absolutely everything, and it's just a cash cow. Then it's like priority is Man United games, and ideally Man United are playing twice a week. You know, Europe and whatever. But then I don't know who are the biggest artists that you two like that would come on tour, music artists.
Chuck Paul McCartney in there.
Paul McCartney,
Paul McCartney,
you need Paul McCartney to be coming to the UK and doing like, right, my UK date, he'd probably do loads.
I mean, to be fair, he's 82.
Yeah.
And we're missing the 2030.
That's going to be,
maybe go somewhere a bit
99, what is that?
When 90-year-old Paul McCartney wants to come on tour and you're there buying the tickets, you'll be there at this Old Trafford, at this new Old Trafford, and that'll be called, God knows what, the Snapdragon Arena or whatever it'll be at that point. But I think United have got to have a thing where, NFL games or because why not? Spurs are making absolute bank off that. Yeah, they're not really doing much with it in terms of the first team, but like the idea being that it's a good idea to have boxing. Some of the biggest fights. You've got loads of fighters that come out of Manchester. Yeah, really, should they be doing it at the arena? Much more fun to do it in a stadium. And I think that's what they're looking at. But Norman Foster and the gang seem to be stuck on we need this land, we knew this land all along, can't get the land, need the land, so we'll see.
So annoying.
It is so annoying. Let's look ahead to the Liverpool game a little bit then. Obviously huge game for Amorim in terms of we mentioned Cunha and a statement kind of moment, a statement goal, statement game, a statement not quite being there yet. I think Amorim, the win against City last season was pretty good at the Etihad. That felt pretty sizable. But again, as we discussed before, it's if there's an obvious reason why you were allowed to win that game, you don't get the credit. So obviously City were going through a really rough patch, therefore doesn't count. But the fact that and you always mention it, Jay, but Gary Neville, the way he commentated that game was like, I hate my life, I hate being here, these two are shit, I can't wait for it to end. And then we scored the winner, it's like, thank God it's over.
And it annoyed me so much because you're right, I'm glad you brought it up, because it was like you just saw two crap teams basically. And I thought if you actually went through that the game, player for player, how many City players played well and how many United players played well? There was quite a few decent performances from United. I must say it was a vintage barnstorming game, like the FA Cup final where we won, where we just dominated. We didn't, but quite a lot of players turned up and did well. Whereas for City, I don't think any of them did. So it annoyed me that it was this narrative of us like, it's a derby win that almost doesn't count.
So we didn't get many points for that, really. The Liverpool game last season, the 2-2, I think still might be our best performance under Amorim, considering the opposition, because they were flying and we weren't. But again, it's not a win. This is a huge opportunity, but also you might lose 6-0. So how do you sort of see this one and looking in from Amorim's perspective?
I just think, imagine United sort of get a scruffy win at Anfield, you'd be on here buzzing. And yet the narrative could still be that that was naff, Liverpool are out of sorts. It's not that impressive, which would be so harsh if United could win at Anfield. Whereas Liverpool get a scrappy win over Man United and it'll all be on Amorim's busted flush, United can win because they can win the game, and also ultimately the narrative outside of that is irrelevant to the players. I'm fairly optimistic going to Anfield. United have shown they can get up for the big games. City aside, I think, but Arsenal, they will bang at it. And I remember coming out of that Arsenal game saying, they turn up like this every week, they'll be fine. And then they don't do that, unfortunately. But I think they will be. But both sides will. I actually think the international break came at a bad time. Liverpool were on the ropes there, and now they've had the chance to steady themselves a bit. Be interesting if Gravenberch is missing. Huge player for them. Their midfield has not functioned very well. I'm saying that like Man United's does. That's check myself in the moment there at the point. But I think Mbeumo playing well. Fullback wise, they have looked shocking. Kirk he's clearly not having Frimpong. From what I can see, Frimpong, I think that would play into United's hands if Frimpong played in terms of defensively leaves so many gaps. I'm curious how bold he goes. Will he go Ahmad at right wing back? Will he go Mazraoui or Dalot? Is he going to go safety first? And if he does, I think that's not good news. I'd almost try and take it to him.
I agree. That's what I've been saying for ages. I love it if we actually, as you say, took it to him and tried to sort of turn that crowd, which despite what loads of people say, does turn against the team very quickly at Anfield. I don't know. If you're going off what you'd expect him to do, I think he'll probably play Dalot at right wing back, I think he'll probably be more defensive minded, personally.
I think he might think what we have to do is stay in the game. Because
inviting Liverpool onto at Anfield just seems like
I agree. I wouldn't do it. I just think, from him, I'd be surprised if he went for it.
They've also not, and obviously they could. So sitting here saying this, they're going to do it, but they've not put anyone away yet this season. They've not, even the teams that have sat back a little bit, they've not gone swish 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 4-0. That performance hasn't happened yet for Liverpool. Yeah, exactly. But I reckon if you told Amorim right now you can go into the 85th minute, draw in this game, he would take that instantly. And I think
we would all take that.
Yeah, and I think potentially the best way to do that might be let the game happen for 80 minutes, defend well, don't take any risks, be in the game for the last 10, and then see what you can do. I think obviously going for it and pushing them, get a couple of goals, we'd all love that. But this is, a ground where United have scored two times in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like the 2-2 last year, I think we got one in the 5-1 loss or 7. What was the loss? 5-1?
The one
at half time
under Ragnick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a 5-1 wasn't it?
Yeah, 5-1.
I can't remember.
So we got one in that game.
Erased a lot of them from my memory.
And other than that, we haven't scored there since Wanfield. So I think
hindsight will be 20/20 at the end of it, won't it? Like we'll get to the end and go, should have gone for it. They were crap, and or after it's like, that sort of Nathan Salt approach was terrible. Why does
they call it the Nathan Salt?
Why does Amorim watch Paddock? Midweek, he should be looking at his tactics. And they'll say shouldn't have gone for it. They picked you off too easy. But I think if Gravenberch isn't playing, McAllister hasn't been on it. Let's just be real. One of the best midfielders in the league last year. He's not been at it. They're suspect defensively.
Yeah.
Everyone's mocking Van Dijk, which makes a change with kind of the memes around him. Will it be Alisson? Will it be Mamadashvili? There's arguments for both, right? There's arguments that they're not at it. They're a bit nervous. They need to start fast. And if United can get an early sucker punch, then it gives them something to hold on to. Or is it you're expecting Liverpool to come out fast because it's Man United? They've not been very good this season, so contain and compact, and then go for it from there. It's difficult. It is difficult to,
because I think the one thing, obviously, I don't. This is maybe just me being defensive and fearful, but the one thing that would immediately give Liverpool, or blow away a lot of the cobwebs of the last few weeks, would be an early goal. Because then all of a sudden, we've seen, how many times we've seen it? Last minute of the game, we're attacking and Salah's just running through by himself with the ball at his feet. It seems to happen all the time. Salah with a late goal, Salah making it 4, Salah with a third.
Do you remember when he didn't used to score against us?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he's got 9 goals in his last 7.
Loads of goals.
This will be Dorgu's biggest test, right? Dorgu up against Salah.
Yeah.
By far. And Luke Shaw as well down that side. If we're expecting it to be Shaw that'll play there,
Salah,
so he's typically struggled against Salah a lot.
His worst games have been against Salah.
So there's
5-0 at Old Trafford.
Oh mate, that's the worst. You know why you're saying it?
I know.
That is genuinely, and I'm not even got an agenda against Luke Shaw. Anyone who watches his channel knows I haven't. But that is the worst performance by a United player I think I've ever seen. It was shocking. Honestly.
It's all. We're positive bandwagon here, but it's all right. But I'm saying that he will need protecting, right? You can all see it. He's had trouble in the past. Dorg is a young player who will have to do a lot going both ways. We know from that Chelsea game that Salah doesn't like going back the other way. So can you get in behind Salah and keep him back? Obviously putting a lot of pressure on Luke Shaw should it come back the other way. But that midfield too will be really interesting. It's probably going to be Bruno and Casemiro.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting if he went even more. If he went Casemiro and Ugarte and push. But I don't know. I don't expect him to reinvent the wheel. We know what he likes to do, but definitely there'll be some selections in there that I think will be really telling of, like you say, what does he want to do? Is he going to go for it? If we see Dalot, we see Ugarte, I think it'll be much more defensive minded, and he'll go for what you say, just try and contain and hope that Mbeumo on the counter or Sesko on the counter can give you that break.
Yeah, it is. It's just
got positive. I got positive vibes for Anfield.
Positive vibes. This is it. They're there for the taking. They've lost 3 on the road.
Lisandro Martinez said last time after that 2-2 that this is the standard, and then I don't know what happened after that. But that was the standard that day.
For a year, and we forgot.
Yeah. That was the standard that day. Yeah.
Nathan, thank you as always for coming on. It's been excellent having you. Look in the description for Nathan's socials and some links to his recent articles as well over on the Daily Mail. Thank you very much for joining us, Jay. As always,
cheers, Nathan. Cheers,
fantastic.
Joe.
Thank you for watching at home. We'll see you in a bit.